So here's something that genuinely bothers me about the IRMAA conversation. Every video, every article, every financial warning about Medicare premium surcharges tells you the same thing. You crossed a threshold. Your income was too high. You need to manage your income better next time. And that framing is wrong because the men getting hit by IRMAA aren't reckless spenders. They're not blowing money on bad investments. They're not ignoring their finances. They're doing the things that every retirement resource told them were smart. The responsible moves, the disciplined moves, the decisions that made them feel like they were finally getting retirement right. And those decisions are quietly triggering one of the most expensive surprises in all of retirement. A Medicare premium that can double or triple 2 years after the decision that caused it, with no warning and no connection to anything you're currently doing. I know this because several of these 7 decisions describe something I've done or almost done. And when Frank, my tax guy of 15 years, walked me through what each of them does to modified adjusted gross income and what that income does to the Medicare bill 2 years later, I sat there looking at a list of things I was proud of that were working against me. That's what today is. 7 decisions men make with pride. Decisions that feel financially sound, responsible, even wise, and the specific IRMAA mechanism each one quietly triggers. If any of these describes something you've done recently or are planning to do, you need to hear this before January arrives and the bill tells you the same thing 2 years too late. By the way, my name is Edward Gray, and I'm a retiree just like you. On this channel, I share what I've learned from my own retirement, my own mistakes, and the conversations I've had along the way, so you can see where you stand and what you might do differently. If that sounds like something you want more of, hit subscribe and become part of this community. So let's get into it. The first one, reinvesting dividends automatically in a taxable account. And I want to start here because this is the one that catches men completely off guard. Because it didn't make a single active decision. They set it up years ago and forgot about it. Here's the mechanism. When your taxable brokerage account holds dividend paying funds or stocks, those dividends are taxable income the moment they're paid, whether you take the cash or reinvest it automatically. You don't have to touch the money. You don't have to sell anything. The dividend gets credited to your account, reinvested into more shares, and a 1099 shows up at tax time reflecting income you never saw as cash. And all of it counts toward your modified adjusted gross income for IRMAA purposes. So, a man with $400,000 in a taxable account earning 3% in dividends has $12,000 of annual IRMAA relevant income from that account alone. Income he may not think of as income at all because he never held it in his hand. Over time, as the portfolio grows through those reinvested dividends, the annual dividend income grows too. And if you're already close to an IRMAA threshold from other sources, part-time work, Social Security, IRA withdrawals, that quietly growing dividend income can be the final push over the cliff. The fix isn't to stop reinvesting. It's to know what the dividends are adding to your annual MAGI and factor that into every other income decision you make. Because the man who knows his dividends are producing $15,000 of Meiji knows he has $15,000 less headroom for a Roth conversion. The man who isn't tracking it does the conversion without accounting for the dividends and finds himself over the threshold without understanding why. Now, if dividends are the quiet background trigger, building MAGI slowly without anyone noticing, the second one is the decision men are most publicly proud of. And it's the one where the conflict between the right long-term move and the IRMAA consequence is sharpest. and that's doing a Roth conversion. And I'll be straight about this one before explaining the mechanism. Roth conversions are still usually the right move. I do them every year. I've made a whole series of videos on this channel about why they work and when they make sense. But men who've heard those videos and decided to convert aggressively, doing large conversions quickly to clear out. The traditional IRA before RMDs arrive are sometimes creating the very IRMAA problem they were trying to protect against. Here's the mechanism. Every dollar you convert from a traditional IRA to a Roth shows up as ordinary income in the year of conversion. That income adds directly to modified adjusted gross income. And modified adjusted gross income is exactly what SSA uses from 2 years earlier to set your Medicare premium. So a $180,000 conversion in 2024 that pushes your MAGI to $280,000 produces a higher Medicare premium in 2026. 2 years later, after the conversion has been completed, the tax paid, the money growing tax-free. The conversion itself was smart. The sizing was wrong because the men who benefit most from Roth conversions are the ones filling the bracket every year, converting deliberately, watching both the bracket ceiling and the IRMAA threshold simultaneously, staying below the cliff while still moving money efficiently. The men who get hit are the ones optimizing for bracket efficiency without running the IRMAA check. They stay inside the 22% bracket but cross the $218,000 IRMAA tier for married couples without realizing the two calculations use different lines. The bracket and the cliff are different thresholds. You have to watch both or you solve one problem and create another. And what Frank told me when he first laid this out is still the clearest way I've heard it said. A conversion planned around the tax bracket but not planned around the IRMAA cliff can cost more than it saves. Now, the third one is the one that produces the largest single-year IRMAA hit on this entire list. And it's a decision almost every man on the planet feels completely good about. I'm talking about selling the family home. Yes, you bought it decades ago. You raised your family there. You've maintained it, paid it off, and watched it appreciate for 30 years. Now you're downsizing to something smaller, freeing up equity for retirement, and moving into the next phase. Every part of that decision is reasonable. Most of it is the right call. But here's what happens to Meiji in the year of sale. The IRS gives you a capital gains exclusion on the sale of a primary residence. $250,000 for a single filer, $500,000 for a married couple. If the home appreciated beyond that exclusion, the excess gain is taxable as long-term capital gains. And long-term capital gains count toward modified adjusted gross income for IRMAA purposes. So, a couple who bought their home for $150,000 in 1992 and sells it for $750,000 in 2024 has a gain of $600,000. After the $500,000 exclusion, $100,000 is taxable gain. That $100,000 adds to their MAGI for 2024 and shows up in their Medicare premium in 2026. Depending on their other income, that $100,000 of additional MAGI could push them from below the first IRMAA tier to above it, or from one tier to the next. And in appreciating markets, the excess gain is often significantly larger than $100,000. A home purchased in a major metro area in the 1990s could easily generate $300,000 to $500,000 of taxable gain after the exclusion. That kind of 1 year Magi spike can push a couple up 2 or 3 IRMAA tiers simultaneously. The fix here isn't to avoid selling the home. It's to model the Magi impact before the transaction closes and plan other income sources around it. If you know the home sale will push MAGI into a high IRMAA tier that year, you reduce or pause Roth conversions, defer capital gains harvesting, and minimize every other discretionary income event in that calendar year. You can't undo the home sale, but you can manage everything around it. Now, the fourth one surprises people most because it comes from a decision made at exactly the right time, for the right reasons, on the government's recommended schedule. I'm referring to filing for Social Security at full retirement age. You waited. You didn't claim early at 62. You followed the advice, hit your full retirement age, and started collecting the benefit you earned. Here's the IRMAA mechanism underneath that responsible decision. Social Security income feeds into your modified adjusted gross income calculation. Specifically, up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can become taxable depending on your combined income. And that taxable portion counts toward MAGI, which is what SSA uses for IRMAA. So the year Social Security starts, your MAGI increases, not just by what you spend, but by a portion of every Social Security check. For a man receiving $2,400 a month in Social Security, $28,800 a year, up to $24,480 of that can become taxable MAGI depending on other income. That $24,480 is new MAGI that didn't exist the year before Social Security started. If you were sitting below an IRMAA threshold before Social Security began, that threshold gap just got $24,000 narrower. And if you're also taking IRA withdrawals or doing Roth conversions, Social Security's contribution to MAGI is now stacking on top of every other income source. This is the specific reason Frank and I looked at what my MAGI picture looks like the year Social Security begins before deciding how much to convert each year between now and then. The conversion amount that stays safely below the IRMAA threshold today may cross it the year Social Security starts, because the threshold gap shrinks without any other decision changing. Model the full income picture for the year Social Security begins before you finalize any conversion schedule. The year it starts changes everything. Now, the fifth one is unavoidable. There's no way around it. But how it hits IRMAA depends entirely on whether you prepared for it in the years before it arrived. And that's taking required minimum distributions. You see, at 73, the IRS requires you to take money out of your traditional IRA and 401k every year, whether you need it or not. The amount is calculated by dividing the account balance by a life expectancy factor that shrinks annually. So as you age, the forced percentage increases. Every dollar of that RMD is ordinary income. It counts fully toward modified adjusted gross income. And if you arrive at 73 with a large traditional IRA that's been growing untouched for a decade, the first RMD alone can push your MAGI into IRMA, A territory from a standing start. I'm 67 and I won't hit RMDs until 73. I have 6 years to reduce the traditional IRA balance deliberately through conversions so that the forced distribution at 73 is calculated on a smaller base and produces a smaller MAGI impact. The men who didn't do that work, who arrived at 73 with a large, untouched traditional IRA, are now receiving mandatory income they didn't ask for, paying taxes on it at ordinary income rates, and potentially crossing IRMAA thresholds they were previously below. And because the RMD grows every year as the life expectancy factor shrinks, it's not a one-time hit. It's an escalating annual income event for the rest of retirement. The frustration these men feel is completely valid. They did everything right. They saved diligently for 40 years, and now the IRS is forcing income onto their tax return that they didn't request and can't decline. The only protection against this is the conversion work done in the years before 73. Every dollar converted to Roth before RMDs begin is a dollar that never becomes a forced distribution. And that protection window closes the moment RMDs start. Now, the sixth one comes directly from my own experience. And it's the decision I made in 2021 that sent me a $4,000 Medicare bill in 2023. And that's paying off the mortgage with an IRA withdrawal. Now, entering retirement debt-free is one of the most psychologically powerful financial moves a man can make. No monthly payment. The house is completely yours. The fixed expense is gone. I did this. I pulled $110,000 from my IRA in 2021 to clear the remaining mortgage balance, and I felt good about it. What I didn't understand was that $110,000 in IRA withdrawals is $110,000 of ordinary income in the year it's taken. All of it hits MAGI. And if that single withdrawal pushes your MAGI over an IRMAA threshold, which mine did, the Medicare surcharge arrives 2 years later. I paid off the mortgage in 2021. I got a higher Medicare bill in 2023. The payoff was the right decision. The execution created an avoidable bill. If I'd split it, $60,000 in 2021 and $50,000 in 2022, checking the IRMAA threshold before each withdrawal, I likely would have stayed below the cliff entirely. Same result, same debt-free house. Different MAGI in each year, different Medicare bills. And this isn't unique to mortgage payoffs. Any large one-time IRA withdrawal, basic, for a car, a home renovation, a medical expense, has the same IRMA, a mechanic. The size of the withdrawal and whether it crosses a threshold determines the bill 2 years later. Run the IRMA, a check before any large IRA withdrawal, every time, without exception. Now, the seventh one is the one I think will surprise people the most, because it comes from an act of generosity and IRMAA don't belong in the same sentence. I'm talking about making a large charitable gift from a traditional IRA instead of through a QCD. Now, men who give to their church, their university, a hospital, or a cause they care about feel genuinely good about it. It's one of the cleanest expressions of what retirement makes possible, using your resources for something beyond yourself. But here's the IRMAA trap hidden inside a large charitable gift. If you write a check to a charity or direct your IRA custodian to make a large distribution that you then donate, the distribution counts as ordinary income on your tax return. It inflates MAGI. And if it's large enough, it crosses an IRMAA threshold. Yes, you get a charitable deduction, but the deduction reduces taxable income, not MAGI, for IRMAA purposes. The two calculations are different. A large charitable gift can simultaneously reduce your tax bill and increase your Medicare premium. Now, here's the thing that should genuinely frustrate anyone who gave this way without knowing the alternative existed. Once you're 70 and a half, you can send money directly from a traditional IRA to a qualifying charity through a qualified charitable distribution, a QCD. That transfer never touches your MAGI. It counts towards your RMD for the year without showing up as income. The charity gets the full amount. Your tax return shows no income from the transaction. A man who gives $30,000 to his church through a QCD, zero MAGI impact, RMD satisfied, charity gets the full amount. A man who takes a $30,000 IRA distribution and writes a check. $30,000 hits MAGI, potentially crosses an IRMAA threshold, Medicare bill goes up 2 years later. Same gift, same church, same generosity, completely different Medicare consequence. The QCD doesn't just save the donor, it protects the charity. Because a donor who avoids an unexpected Medicare bill has more to give in future years. And most men who gave the wrong way didn't know the right way existed. So here you have it. 7 decisions. 7 things men do with confidence. Some with pride, some with relief, some with genuine generosity, that each have a specific IRMAA mechanism running underneath them. Reinvested dividends building MAGI silently in the background. Roth conversions sized for the bracket, but not checked against the cliff. A home sale with gains above the exclusion. Social Security beginning and narrowing the threshold gap. RMDs arriving at 73 on a balance that wasn't reduced. A mortgage payoff that pulled too much from the IRA in a single year. A charitable gift that went through taxable income instead of directly through a QCD. None of these are bad decisions. That's the whole point. The problem isn't the decision. It's making the decision without knowing what it does to MAGI 2 years from now. Once you know the mechanism, and now you do, the same decision can often be executed differently to produce the same result without the IRMAA consequence. Split the withdrawal across years, size the conversion against both the bracket and the cliff. Model the home sale, MAGI, impact before closing. Use a QCD instead of a standard distribution for charitable giving. Run the full income picture for the year Social Security begins before finalizing anything else. The decisions don't change. The execution does. And the bill that arrives in January depends entirely on whether you knew the mechanism before you pulled the trigger. Drop a comment and tell me which of these 7 describes a decision you've already made or are planning. And if you've already received an IRMAA surcharge from one of these, if you can now connect the build to the decision, tell me that too. Because the men in this community learning from each other's experience is worth more than anything I can put in a script. And if today gave you something useful, share this with someone who's about to make one of these 7 decisions without knowing what it does to their Medicare premium 2 years out. And if you're not already part of this community, come join us, because this is what we do here. Real mechanisms, real consequences from guys who are actually living it. Hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. See you in the next one.